Teresa, hi. How are you today?
Hey, I'm really well, Melissa. Thanks so much for having me here.
Good. Of course. Yeah. I am so thankful for Hannah for connecting us because I didn't know who you were and now I do. And I'm meeting you for the first time over Zoom, which is kind of funny, but that's just the world we live in now, right?
Yep, exactly. I'm happy to see your face.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before we jump in, I just was hoping you could introduce everyone to you. Who are you?
Yeah, totally. So my name is Teresa Eggleston. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist associate, practicing in Spokane, Washington, and throughout Washington State. And I specialize in kind of healing trauma, trauma awareness, and just getting connected with your body.
That's awesome. And you have children and a partner and a
I do,
dog.
yeah. I have a partner who's also a therapist, which is awesome.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then we have four kids, ranging from, gosh, our oldest is about to turn 19, and then
Oh,
16, 9, and 6. And our dog
okay.
Toby, and now we have seven chickens
Okay.
also.
So I saw that you were about to get chickens. And so that's one of the
Mhm.
things I want to ask you about is like,
Yes.
okay, tell me, like, why chickens and how did this come about? I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, so we had a flock before and we really loved
Okay.
that. But then going through grad school and everything, I was like, oof, as the flock kind of, slowed down and stuff, we didn't get any more. But
Okay.
now the kids are like, oh, we want something new and we have the coop already. So my
Okay.
partner, Jacob, he actually had a friend from work that gave him some three baby chicks with a mama freshly
Oh,
hatched. And so they were like, oh, yeah, the mama will take care of the chicks. So I was like, great. And on the way home from getting these babies and mama, we stopped by the feed store to get chicken feed. And I don't know why they have baby chicks in August, but they do.
yeah.
And so we picked up a few more,
Oh,
but the mom will not accept those ones as her own. So
oh,
it's kind of a little experiment we're having where we have four baby chicks that we're hand raising in a brooder. And then we have the three baby chicks. They're about a week apart that mama's raising. And then we'll combine the babies in about 6 weeks and give mom back.
oh my gosh, that's really interesting. I would love to hear updates on how, like, it's like a research project. How exciting. Like,
It's really cool. Like, how will the hand raised ones be different as far as how
yes.
tame they are or how they interact? And then what will the pecking order be when we combine the
Yeah.
flock? Yeah, all
Oh,
that. Super interesting. Chickens
interesting.
are so fun to watch.
Yeah. I have always wanted chickens, but my husband says no. He says they're really stinky, which they might be.
Don't
But
disagree.
you disagree?
I don't disagree. No,
Oh,
I
darn it,
mean, if you have enough
Teresa.
space, but it's not terrible. You can compost it.
We definitely don't have a big space and we live in a neighborhood. And so he's also worried about that. And anyway, we'll probably never have chickens. So I just am always intrigued when people are getting chickens. Like, oh, that's so cool. I would love to be able to just go out my back door and get some chicken eggs in the morning. But that will probably never happen. So I've accepted it.
We'll post updates about ours. You can
Yeah,
see them growing.
I would love to. Yeah. Okay. So now let's jump into why you're here, right? I just saw that and I was like, I have to ask her while I have her. Okay. So tell me how you got into this line of work.
Yeah, wow. So, I guess to make a long story short, I decided to go back to school in 2019 after going through some therapy myself
Hmm.
and really gaining some valuable insight on kind of, I don't know, learning who I really was and what my values were and everything. And actually realizing that the relationship I was in was really unhealthy.
Mm,
And so in 2020 is actually when we separated, and I went back to grad school the following year after completing my bachelor's degree.
okay.
But it really was my therapist made such a difference in my life, like in the trajectory of
Mhm.
my life. And I remember speaking with her and being like, man, I want to help. I wish I could do something like this. And she was like, why can't you? And I was like, oh, I am far too, I could never. I've been
Mhm.
through, and she kind of leaned in and she was like, hey, all the best therapists have been like, we're
Yeah.
the most messed up. That's why we do this. And I was like, really? So I started kind of, thinking about the idea of like, wow, maybe I
Yeah.
could do this. And then, yeah, I applied to Whitworth and kind of I remember going there the first time and just really feeling like this is what I meant to do. And then
Mm,
starting to work with clients and seeing the differences in their lives. It's just feels like magic.
yeah. That's awesome. So trauma is kind of what Actually, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you say trauma is one of the things you specialize in, is like healing from trauma? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you define trauma?
So trauma, I would say, is anything that happens in your life where your psyche or, your mental capacity cannot quite understand that, or your body and your actual nervous system gets overwhelmed to the point
Hmm.
where there's a disconnect, almost a fragmentation.
Hmm.
And so part of you kind of gets stuck in that state while the rest of you moves on. And so our body really holds those experiences. And if we don't learn to have appropriate release of those, they will come up in situations where, I'm sure we've all heard the word triggered,
Yeah.
but when we're
Yeah.
triggered, those parts will kind of take over and you will react in ways that are not your true self.
Yeah.
And so I think trauma kind of hijacks your ability to respond how you want to. And it puts you, kind of keeps your body hyper vigilant and in a fight or flight state and a very
Yeah.
reactionary state. And so learning to kind of unravel that and understand your body and then really getting that out so it's not
Hmm.
stuck anymore, I think is kind of, yeah, what we're focused on.
Yeah. And you do focus on the body and like kind of holistic work with holistic healing, I guess I should say. So like what would that look like in relation to trauma? What does it look like to look at holistically our whole selves and the somatic work that you do?
Well, I love to say it's not all in your head, because I think a lot of times when we have experienced trauma, we will live just up here and we will start to intellectualize things and very like overwhelming thoughts and just live in our brains so much. And there's kind of a disconnect between our hearts and bodies and our brains. So, I mean, I think that what our job is to kind of teach. I'm sorry, can you actually repeat that question?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm just curious about is how do you use holistic healing to help someone heal from
Yes.
trauma and the somatic side of things? How does that come into play?
Okay. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I'm a little lost, but I think regular therapy or a lot of old fashioned therapy does a lot of talking. And so we stay in that intellectual state where you can talk about it and talk about it, but it still feels like it comes up. And yeah, it feels great to talk about, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But after the therapy session's over, you're still getting triggered, you're still
Hmm.
feeling the same. So I really like to bring the body into session, whether it be through tools such as like sound healing or meditation or breathing,
Okay.
um, because it's about slowing down that brain and actually getting you back into your body and learning how to feel safe
Hmm.
living in your body in the present moment and not always trying to kind of escape and live up here because that is what has been safe in the past.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I didn't want to go this way, but I want to now because you said it. The sound. How do you use sound?
So, sound and vibration, frequency healing is what I kind of like to refer to it. Is the best example I can think of right now would be sound bowls.
Yeah.
I don't know
Okay.
if you've ever heard of a sound bath,
Yeah.
but sound healing puts out these vibrations into the air, and there are different frequencies that your body can actually, you feel it when you're in the room. And so by playing different frequencies and allowing you to kind of bathe in that
Hmm.
sound, you're able to feel different places in your body that you may not give yourself permission to feel when you're go, 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 in your day to day life. So I like to say, like, you can't tell someone to try to do something if they've never really experienced it before. So sometimes we bring in sound and then they're like, oh, wow, I could feel that resonating, here in my diaphragm. And then we use that as an anchor point to go, okay, can you breathe into that area that you
Mm.
felt? And it can also calm the mind. The different vibrations can help. And this is a whole nother thing, but it can help
Yeah.
alter the brainwave patterns to give you a more relaxed state and to bring you into that meditative state where neuroplasticity and change is more likely to happen in learning.
Yeah. That's so cool. I haven't heard it explained that way. So I love that. I think I I told Hannah this too when I talked to her, but I've always wanted to do a sound bath. And whenever I see them like being offered, it's never at a time that works for me. So that is on my list. Like I'm going to do that someday and then I'm going to love it and I'm going to do it all the time.
Definitely would recommend.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about domestic violence. When this episode comes out, it will be in October in the midst of domestic violence awareness. And so that's kind of where I want to go right now. So I'm curious from your perspective, what don't people know about domestic violence? What are they missing?
Wow, that's such a big question. What don't people know? I think they don't understand how deeply psychologically it can have roots
Hmm.
in your life. And I think there's still, even with, the shift lately of, we don't want to blame the person going through it, and we don't want to say, well, why didn't you get out sooner?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
still think there is a misunderstanding of, well, it doesn't make sense from an outside perspective why this would be happening. But when you look at attachment and, background and history and how that affects, I'll bring up the nervous system again,
Hmm.
it makes a lot more sense why those patterns are so hard to break
Hmm.
and hard to kind of escape from.
Yeah. So you just said, people from the outside always say, why don't you just get out? And that's very real. Like I hear that all the time. Um, until somebody has experienced it, then they don't say that anymore. Right. And so, how do we get people to understand that it's not as easy as, why don't you just get out?
I think it's really about developing and advocating for a better awareness of how trauma impacts your mind and body, and
Hmm.
how you will show up and respond in
Hmm.
relationships, in your life, in dangerous situations.
Yeah. Yeah. So, learning and being able to not just see things from this through my lens, but being able to step outside and see from a
Oh, I
different
love
lens.
I love that you say that. One of the things, the reason why I chose to be a marriage and family therapist, it's kind of a misnomer because people are like, "Oh, you only work with couples and families." No, it's how we study, and rather than studying through a fine like, "Hey, what's your symptoms and diagnosis?"
Mhm,
No, we want to know like, what is your background? What
mhm,
has made you who you are? Because if we know that, that makes sense. So I
mhm,
think exactly like you just said, people looking from their lens and their experience of their life, it doesn't make sense.
mhm,
But if we can kind of foster this community awareness of, other people have experienced things differently and trauma affects those things. So let's have some compassion for people that may react or behave differently than you.
yeah, totally.
And so that we can still give them the support that they need to heal.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's talk to those individuals that have come out of domestic violence and they just feel lost and not sure, like, how am I gonna I can remember a point in my story where I just was like, this is my reality. This is just who I am now. I'm always gonna be reactive. I'm always gonna be looking over my shoulder. I just felt like that was it. And so I know that there's a lot of people out there that feel that right now. What can we say to them to help them see, like, there can be healing and this is what it might look like?
Yeah. I would say you're not crazy,
Mhm,
and what you're feeling is so real. Um, it makes sense if we think about everything your mind and body have been through in the past months or years,
mhm,
that your nervous system and your brain have rewired in a way to keep you safe and protect you. And that doesn't automatically just turn off once you have, removed yourself from the situation.
mhm,
But what we know about the brain and the body is that it can change. And as much as trauma and bad things can impact and change us, the things that we practice and implement towards healing can also change our brain and body. So it's just a matter of really slowing down and retraining yourself, and also giving compassion for what you've
mhm,
been through, and knowing that there are steps that we can take. And there are so many people that do understand, that can
mhm.
help you and come alongside of you to rewire your body so that you can be the driver of your life again and not feel that reactive, why am I doing this?
Yeah. How do you feel like, Like, what advice would you give to someone to like encourage them to take that first step of reaching out to a therapist, or even just maybe not therapy, maybe something else would be the first baby step. What would your encouragement be to them?
My encouragement would be to trust yourself.
Mhm.
Because I think one of the things out of domestic violence that we lose is our ability to trust our intuition. And so if therapy feels like something that would be helpful, but it's like scary, but ooh, a little curious,
Mhm.
lean into that. But if it's not and it's something else, maybe unconventional, lean into that too,
Mhm.
because our bodies do still have a wisdom. And we need to find something that resonates with us, that really feels like, wow, this is the thing. And any step forward that you take is going to open up doors to new steps that you may not have even known about. So I think if you feel that inkling inside, like, wow, maybe I should reach out, give it a try.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I think that is exactly what you just said, which is we second guess ourselves. We think I don't know if this is right for me or not because we've lost that ability to like trust ourselves. And so I loved what you said, which is if you feel it, just try. Like just try one time, right?
Well, and the
Yeah.
beautiful thing is the more we lean into those little inklings that we have and trust those things, the stronger our ability to follow our intuition and trust ourselves becomes. And so, anytime that comes up, if it feels scary, take a deep breath.
Mhm.
I think sometimes when things feel scary, rather than slowing down, we kind of push forward
Mhm.
or we kind of stop and get stuck in ruminating about thinking about it. But taking a small step, taking any action will create change of some sort in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've talked a little about this already, but when we are in domestic violence or if we're a survivor of domestic violence, our body is holding the trauma that we are experiencing or have experienced.
Mhm.
And it does change us. So I just, again, from personal experience, but also from the families that I work with, I see that when our bodies are still holding on to that lack of trust of ourselves, that it causes us to second guess everything we do, from
Right.
parenting to uh, employment choices to relationship choices. And so again, I want to encourage those of the listeners who are either in this place where they're trying to figure themselves out, or someone on the outside that says, oh, yeah, my neighbor or my best friend is there. How do we help them to understand the holistic side of what it does to us?
Gosh, that's a hard question because I think it might be a little bit different if you are kind of inside versus if you see someone going through it.
Hmm.
But any kind of support or scaffolding is kind of what I like to think of it as, that we can reach out for or offer to
Hmm.
those, like, hey, could I take the kids off your hands for a little bit so
Oh,
you could
yeah.
just take a nap?
That's good.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, just having quiet time, because I think being in those situations, coming out of those situations, or even thinking about trying to get to a place where you can plan to get out of a situation like that is so exhausting. And so having time to slow down and rest your body.
Hmm.
But also, I think there is a tricky piece to that, because since we are wired to kind of go, go, go and be hyper vigilant, when we do get that time, it's like, oh, what do we do with this? How do
Hmm.
we relax? So being very intentional about, I always recommend, if a bath feels safe or
Hmm.
a shower, that can be something that really can bring you back into your body and calm you down, a change of temperature, or maybe taking a dip
Mm.
in, going to the river, which we're so lucky to have in our
Yeah.
city, or a close by lake, even, filling up the bathtub, or, holding ice cubes, spritzing yourself with water. I think offering support of, can I help you relax? But then also using that time to do anything to try to slow down and just feel into it.
Mm-hmm.
Journaling is really great. And I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, kind of steer away from that, but that is one of the ways that we can get those things out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that. The changing of temperature. Um, I always think about the internal temperature. So like I encourage my clients to drink cold water or something cold or get their kids to drink something cold, but I never thought about it from the outside as well. And so that's an easy thing we can do,
Yeah,
right?
it's interesting. I heard this on another podcast, Huberman Lab, but he talks about temperature in that you can control your internal temperature
Mhm.
by the external. So if you're wanting to cool down your inside, since our body kind of acts as a thermostat,
Mhm.
submerging yourself in warm water will make your body go, oh, we have to cool down from the inside. And that will slow things down for your nervous system, your mind, your blood pressure, everything. And then
Mhm.
on the opposite, if you maybe need a little stimulation or energy, or you're feeling very like, oh gosh, I don't have the energy to do what I need to do. I just want to lay in bed all day. Cold water can really heat up the inside so that you're like, oh, have a little boost now.
Interesting. Yeah. That's cool. I like that. Um, okay, so you are working on, or maybe you already have, so you can clarify this for me, but your healing center that you're opening in Hilliard, let's talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. Not open yet. We're still under
Okay.
renovation,
Okay.
construction.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be done in the next 3 weeks or so. And then we will, move in and have our grand opening around the end of September.
So tell us about what it will be, what they can expect. And because what I'm hoping is that somebody who maybe lives in the area that is hearing this will see your center as potentially a first step towards healing, or even Anamkara, or there's other great. There's a wellness center out here, a wellness vault out here in Cheney that just kind of that first step of breath work or yoga. And so what will your center look like so that people can hear what might be a baby step for them?
Definitely. We will have a lot of both individual and group services. So I will be providing, therapy services on a sliding scale
Okay.
and focusing on kind of that somatic lens as well as my partner. And then we'll have other clinicians and healers of different avenues, Reiki, sound
Okay.
healing, breath work that can be available so that it is kind of a home base where you can access a big variety of healing modalities that all focus on the mind body connection
Mm-hmm.
and also meet other people that
Mm-hmm.
might have gone through similar or that are on, the same journey of wanting to come home to their body.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're trying to kind of foster a community as well as, a safe place that people can come to that are curious about non-standard
Yeah.
treatments.
Yeah. So will there be group stuff then?
We are hoping to
Okay.
host group stuff. We'll be having workshops to kind of
Okay.
provide some general psychoeducation about trauma,
Okay.
about communication, about attachment, just to try to improve that kind of baseline awareness of what our community understands about how our brains work and
Yeah.
how we respond to other people.
Yeah.
And then we also will be having specialized groups for support, whether it be for, certain addictions or
Mm-hmm.
certain domestic violence, maybe some teen groups
Okay.
for support in that area. I know teens have a lot of things with relationship and life that
Yep.
they need help with too. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's really about just learning and then providing a safe place.
Yeah, cool. So you and your partner doing therapy, what modalities will you guys be using? Just because we've talked a lot on this podcast of different, like I've had an EMDR therapist, IFS. So just curious, like what modalities you guys will be offering.
So I'm most passionate about lifespan integration, and that's
Okay.
something that we will be offering. A lot of people compare lifespan integration to EMDR in that it is a body-based trauma modality,
Okay.
but it's completely different. And so often, we know that it's not one size fits all in the therapy world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes, if EMDR can only take a person so far, these different modalities can maybe help create some space or shake things up in the right way so that they can keep moving forward in their healing. But lifespan integration is something that is a gentle way to address the things that you have been through without re-traumatizing you by talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it also integrates your memories and things so that your body and mind have that connection again, and it
Yeah.
kind of softens those triggers, or allows those bad dreams or memories that come up to dissipate so that they aren't the drivers of your life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What does life, because I actually have not heard of this one. And so I am going to go on a tangent again and ask you more about like lifespan integration. What would that look like as a client coming in to meet with you? What should they expect?
So, I mean, at first, I would want to just get to know a little bit of information about you and kind of what you're looking for in therapy. But we would do together is we would construct a timeline, is what it's called, of your life. And what it is it's a chronological list of memory cues. And I know this sounds a little weird, but they don't have to be significant memories if they
Mm,
are associated with a sensory, like if it's a smell or a
mhm.
taste or
Yeah.
something you felt, like I remember swimming and it was so
Mm-hmm.
cold. Those memories are really good. And so what we do is the client actually doesn't do much talking at all. The
Okay.
therapist sits across from the client and you really pay attention to their window of tolerance and how their body is responding. So it's very important for the therapist to be well attuned with the client and
Okay.
to notice those slight differences, or even that shift in the room that you can sometimes feel but not see. And
Yeah.
so the therapist takes the client through their timeline so that their mind can pull up those files, so to speak, and reintegrate them in a way that the body understands.
Okay.
And so those kind of trigger points are a little bit less sticky.
Okay.
And it's
Okay.
just it's just about, like I talked earlier about getting fragmented, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like putting the pieces back
Back
together.
together. Mm-hmm. That's cool. Okay. What about your partner? What modalities do you
So
know?
he does, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He also is trained in lifespan integration. We
Okay.
just love it.
Okay.
We also both use a technology called audiovisual entrainment,
Okay.
which is, or what it uses is flickering lights, and it is combined with noise canceling headphones and solfeggio tones or different healing frequencies. And so what it can do is gently guide the brain into different brainwave states, whether it be meditative or, to help maybe sleep or reduce
Mm-hmm.
nightmares or things. Obviously, we can't guarantee results, but the research has shown that it's very helpful in encouraging the brain to do what it does best and learn and grow.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do use, he uses that, I use that as well. And then also we bring in some biofeedback, which
Okay.
is,
Cool.
we
Yeah.
really love heart math, and heart rate variance.
Yeah.
And that's another thing to try to train or retrain you to get into coherence with your mind and body. And it's just a breathing technique that we do, but it comes with this cool little computer app where you have a visual,
Yeah.
and it tracks your heart rate variance is different than your heart rate. And what it's tracking is actually the distance of time between each heartbeat. And
Okay.
so normally when you are inhaling, that distance will shorten a bit, and when you're exhaling, it'll lengthen. However, when you are stuck in fight or flight or a trauma response, or you are just still in your healing process and you haven't learned to get coherent again, there will be no change. And that signals to your body that something is not right.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we like to help people learn how to retrain their body to get into that appropriate heart rate variance so they can feel calm again and feel kind of centered and make decisions out of that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yes. Okay. So we're actually coming to the end of our time, but I do have two more questions for you. So the first one is, what do you wish more people thought of when it comes to trauma?
I wish people understood that most individuals don't want to act in ways that are not good.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of times on both ends, right, with perpetrators or victims,
Yeah.
I think we make a lot of assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I wish people knew most about trauma is there's a story. behind the reason people behave the way they do. And if we can understand the story and the reasons why, that is the key to sitting with them and understanding them in a way that can help. Because when we shame people or when we condemn them for what they've done, that does not provide any space or incentive for them to want to try to do differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Yes. Okay. Then what would be 3 resources that you would recommend to someone who is starting their healing journey? And you can do anything. So you can plug yourself here if you want to.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, the first two I'm going to list are free because I think it's hard when we list resources that, people have to pay to
Yeah.
access. And it's your breath and water.
Okay.
So watching water flow, feeling water on your body can be calming. And also just breathing. There are a lot of free meditation apps, that you can use, a lot of YouTube videos, even things on Spotify. But learning to slow down and breathe is one of the most important pieces, and also one of the places I start with all of my own clients.
Okay. Yeah, that's
And then
good.
I guess the third thing is, like you mentioned earlier, Melissa, there are quite a few now, which I love, healing centers and places where you can learn these skills and find a place to feel safe, find people who understand, who've been through it. It's so, so easy to stay isolated when we have felt, guilt or shame, or just like, oh, how can I go and share what I've been through? But reaching out and getting connected at any of these places with any of these people is such a valuable part of healing, because we all, humans heal in community. We live in community. And I think
Yeah.
that is a missing part of
Yeah.
since the COVID and everything has happened. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. That's good.
Try to get connected.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking time today. I
Really.
really enjoyed talking to you, and I can't wait for the day that we get to meet in person because I know it will happen.
Yes. Yeah, come see the chickens.
I know, right? Yeah, you'll have to keep me updated on that. I'm really interested now. So, okay, well, enjoy the rest of your week, and thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Uh-huh.